open this meeting, public meeting. We film our public meetings now, just so you guys know, the back of your heads will be on video. And our goal here today is to meet you guys. You asked for the meeting, so we'll open it up to you and see what you got to tell us.
Okay, well, I don't know how much all of you guys in the room know about, the whole cleanup that's been going on since 1983, when the EPA made this a Superfund site. But the original Superfund site was 21 square mile area down around Kellogg where all the big plants were and all that. And they divide these sites up into what are called operable units. And operable unit 1 and 2 was the 21 square mile original Superfund site. And that included cleaning up the residential areas in the communities in that 21 square mile, plus all the big plants, So that's 01 and 02. Well, then I don't know, I was a Fed. By the way, I was executive director of the Hazardous Material Policy Council in both the Clinton and Bush administrations. I worked in the White House Council on Environmental Quality and ran the environmental restoration and cleanup program for the Department of Agriculture. And then prior to that, I was the chief environmental engineer for the Forest Service in Washington, D.C. And before that, I worked all over the United States. I'm from Coeur d'Alene originally. So graduated from the University of Idaho and got tapped to do all this stuff. So that's my background. But anyway, so when I retired in 2002, came out and I had land north of Coeur d'Alene, built my retirement house, and these guys, the Basin Commission, hired me back to work, and I've been working ever since. So I've been 57 years doing this for either the feds or the Basin Commission. So anyway, that's my background. But anyway, so you had this 21 square miles, and then EPA in about 2000 started looking at all the other environmental problems upstream, downstream, to Coeur d'Alene and the lake and all that. And they expanded the Superfund site to what they called operable unit number 3 in 2002. And that set off a firestorm around here in this community, of course, and then down at Coeur d'Alene, because all those people down there said, well, if you name Coeur d'Alene Lake a Superfund site, all the tourist industry will go to it, all this business. So anyway, so that was the process, and there was quite a bit of controversy up here and down there about it. And when I retired in 2002. I was doing consulting work in the United States and Africa and all over. I wasn't retired a month, and the government hired me back as a consultant, and so I was working all over. Anyway, and I volunteered to be on the Citizens Coordinating Council for the Basin Commission. What happened was the state of Idaho legislature, once the EPA made this big Superfund site, 1,500 square miles, Idaho said, we want to have Idaho say in what's going on with this thing, and this whole basin is from Lookout Pass basically all the way to the Columbia River, where the Spokane River flows into Roosevelt Lake over there behind Cooley Dam. So anyway, they passed this law, the Basin Commission law, and I've got all this stuff for this. And then they operated kind of halfway for a while, and I came out here retired. I joined the Citizens Coordinating Council because being from here, I did not want them to dredge Coeur d'Alene Lake. I was, thank God, I couldn't put a stop to that. So anyway, I was on the Citizens thing, and pretty soon they asked me to do a bunch of things. And it wasn't long where your chair of your commission up here in the EPA asked me to apply for the job. So that's how I got, and that was 19 years ago. So not to make a long story. Anyway, what we did was, I know the people here, I'm in Idaho, and I sat down with your mayors and your county people and everything. I said, instead of fighting this thing, let's see if we can't make it work for us. And so we put together an organization of the city fathers, county people, and all that. And we did a complete inventory of all of you guys' infrastructure, water lines, sewer lines, streets, roads, gas lines, water storage tanks, treatment plants, the whole thing. And we call that the Drainage Control Infrastructure Revitalization Plan. And Panhandle Health and I worked together on that extensively. So we put together, it was the only one in the state of Idaho where a whole community of people, 4 or 5 towns in the county had all got together and said, these are all the things that are falling apart in our community that need to be fixed. And so we started working against that. And the governor got a hold of me. The first project that we got funding for was the treatment plant at Idaho. $30 million came through that process, because up there they said, well, the well gets flooded every once in a while, so therefore it's a well influenced by surface water, so you got to build a treatment plant. So anyway, we got that anyway. Big old long list, $150 million worth of work. But anyway, make a long story short, I started working with you guys in the community on how to get some of this stuff cleaned up and paid for by somebody other than you local folks. And so we did that, and I'll just give you a short thing. Let's see, in the past, we've done over $150 million worth of work on your infrastructure. We've replaced all the surfacing, all your gravel roads. We repaved 593 paved roads in the valley. That's an Eastside Highway District too. And we did $38 million worth of side drainage flood control projects like Grouse Creek and Smelterville and you know, Shields Gulch, and Osmond used to flow right into the front of the school, elementary school there, and that flood. We did all those projects, all with federal Superfund funds of some kind or the other. And so we did all that infrastructure work, and then we worked with the communities, and we said, okay, if we fund the roads, we got a bunch of money. You guys have to have matching money to do your sewers and your water. And we don't want to pave your roads and then 2 years later dig all your new roads up, putting in sewer and water. So then the local community, you guys got grants then through USDA to replace the underground facility. So the whole thing was put together as a package. So I'd say probably since 2009, we've probably done between 150 and 175 million dollars worth of infrastructure improvements for you guys as a community because of Superfund. Other than the cleanups too, of course. We cleaned up 7,000 properties and all that other kind of stuff. But anyway, what I wanted to visit with you about what has been accomplished, and I've got a copy here of just off the top of my head stuff. You don't know the things that we've done over all these since I've been here 19 years. So that's that. And the way the Basin Commission is set up is, like I said, it was set up by the state of Idaho, and when they passed the statute, the legislature and the governor signed it into law, and it says that the state of Idaho, Shoshone, Kootenai, and Benewah County make up the Basin Commission by law. So we need you guys to be involved. But then the feds and tribe and the state of Washington joined the commission by memorandum of agreement. So we have a commission that's made up of those 7 governments now. And each of those governments needs a commissioner and an alternate to serve on the commission, and then we need to have, and then we elect our own officers. We have a chair and a vice chair and a treasurer and a secretary, and they vote amongst themselves to fill those jobs. So anyway, there's this commission thing. And what it basically does is, the commission coordinates all the efforts in the whole Superfund site. In other words, most Superfund sites, the EPA has the absolute authority to implement the remedy, and they just do it, you know. But with this is the only thing like this I know of in the United States, and I worked on Superfund sites, over 300 of them all across the whole United States as a Fed, so I know what I'm talking about. But it's the only one that has a commission like this of local folks that have a big say in what is going on in their communities. I think it's a real good thing, and we need to continue to support that effort. And Andy and I were struggling with how we're gonna fill my job with somebody that'll still do the job for you, you know, and that kind of stuff. But I'm soliciting your support for this Basin Commission, and especially I need to have you guys nominate a commissioner and an alternate to the governor. And then the governor then says, okay, you 3 guys have come up with these representatives for the Basin Commission. Then he turns around and sends me a letter and says, here's your commissioner and your alternate from Shoshone County. And I've got copies of what Leslie did down in Kootenai County just recently. They changed around. So you kind of have an idea, especially your clicking, on how you go about nominating your people for these positions on the commission. So anyway, that's that. But it's a unique situation, and I work with the congressional delegation, the legislature, the governor's office, and my job is to not only be an engineer and look at all of the physical stuff going on, but also be a politician, be a public relations officer, and all other kinds of. I don't think I've got any more.
That's
of those.
okay, I'll steal a copy of it
but
afterwards.
see what I did, and if you need a copy, I didn't want you to have to try to come up with
This is great,
thing.
thank you.
Yeah, so you know what Kootenai County
Yeah,
did, yeah.
I'll just copy that.
So anyway, that's what my job is, and then I coordinate with the representative for Idaho is Jess Byrne. He's the director of DEQ. The representative for the state of Washington is the regional director of Washington Department of Ecology. The representative for the tribe is a member of the tribal council. Let me see, the representative for the federal government is the regional administrator of EPA in Seattle, but his alternate always comes, he doesn't come, you know, so we got, and then let's see, who else have we got? Oh, Shoshone County, I got Kootenai County is Leslie and Bill Brooks. And then Benoit County is Phil Lampert. I don't know if you guys know Phil or not. He's one of the commissioners down there. And for years, Jack Buell was my chair because I got Jack to do it because he and I are old friends because I used to live in St. Mary's. So anyway, but he got retired by the voters. So yeah. Your position on the Basin Commission has to be one of you elected commissioners. Okay, so that's it.
I think that we've already decided that I would be the
Okay, good.
representative.
But you need an alternate too,
I
because
think
you
we
never.
did pick an alternate that day.
Yeah, and then you need to tell it, but here's the thing, the next meeting is March 15th, and I need to have, see, the law says if I don't have a letter from the governor, I can't let that person, you may come in and say, well, we agreed amongst ourselves and I'm gonna be, I can't even let you vote by law, I have to have the designation, so anyway, so I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens is, every year, I solicit everything everybody that's in the basin's gonna do. We've got 7 governments and 23 agencies that I do. What are you guys gonna do as far as work, cleanup, and all that kind of stuff? And this is unique. This is where the EPA has to tell everybody else what they're gonna do. And this is a unique site because a lot of cases, the EPA on a Superfund site pretty well keeps things real close to the chest. And we produce an annual work plan every year, and I've got a copy of that one for you for this year. I'll give you one too. And we produce this annual work plan based upon the stuff that the EPA, the state of Idaho, the state of Washington, the tribe, everybody tells me. And one of the things I forgot to tell you, these Superfund sites have 2 sections, and this is called, it's CERCLA, Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act. And everybody just says Superfund. Now, every remedial site's not a Superfund site. It has to be bad enough that it scores high enough that the EPA takes over. The Forest Service and Land Management Agencies, Park Service, BLM, they've been cleaning up their abandoned mines I started the program in Forest Service 35, 40 years ago. I mean, I used to be a timber guy. I put the timber sails up in the roads and all that. I'd drive by all these abandoned mines in the National Forest with all this horrible mess. I said, you know, they're after me all the time about the mess I make when I log. What about this horrible mess that was left 50 years ago by somebody? So I went after the mines and when I got a different job. So anyway, so they have the authority. Now, like up on the North Fork, when we put this Superfund site together, I was in DC and I said, you're not gonna run it up the North Fork of the Coeur d'Alene River. We're gonna keep it in the South Fork and the main stem. So all the cleanups up there have been done by the Forest Service. But they have the same authority EPA does on public lands. And then if you have public and private land combination at one site, then you gotta get the EPA and the Forest Service working together, which is that's how they did Jack Wade and some of those big ones up there. So anyway, so the other agencies have CERCLA authority, BLM, Park Service, Forest Service, and then the EPA, and that's your 4 federal agencies, okay. But the other part of CERCLA is you got the cleanup, but then you got natural resource restoration. And we rewrote Superfund in the Clinton administration in '95. And under that, the natural resource trustees are the tribes, the states, the Forest Service, and various agencies in the Department of Interior, Fish and Wildlife, BLM, USGS, and those are the natural resource trustees. So on this site, you've got EPA and DEQ are the environmental enforcement for the cleanup, and you got the trustees coming behind the cleanup and restoring the natural resources. And for the state of Idaho, that's DEQ and Fish and Game. They're the 2 trustees for Idaho. And then for the tribe, it's a tribe, of course. For the federal government, it's the Forest Service and the Department of Interior are the trustees. So they got when we sued all these mine companies to get money to clean this mess up, they got money, account, and Remedy got money. So you'll hear people talking about maybe 2 different accounts. Yeah, I'll help you. You'll get into a meeting and wonder, oh my God, and everybody uses acronyms. They don't tell you what they stand for. I mean, there's a million acronyms. In fact, in the package you'll get for each meeting, I've got a whole list of all the acronyms of what they mean. It's nuts. I can't even remember them all. Okay, so we have a work plan every year. And then we have a 5-year work plan that I have to update. And every year you do some work and then it shoves a 5-year work plan 1 year ahead, say. So we do that, so it's a 5-year work plan too. And then at the end of the year, in March every year, we have a report card on how well all these people did on their work plan. And here's last year's report card on all the work. I worked in government so long, like the federal government. One of the things I did was I put together a work plan for my agency, and then I'd report to Congress if I did what I said I was gonna do, and if I didn't, I got spanked for it. Or if I did real good, then we got some awards, see? You know, there's a process. So this is the report from last year. I'm currently working on the 22 report, and I'll be presenting that at the Basin Commission meeting in March for the commissioners' review and approval. And we'll go through this, the one for this last year, page by page. And you'll see, if you look in here, you'll see every single thing that they worked on in 2021. And the accountability for that work. Okay, so, I mean, I'm going like crazy here. There's a briefing book for the Basin Commission. I made you a new one because I didn't know what your predecessors might have done with the old one.
Okay.
And this has got, you know, the latest stuff in here, you know, but some of it is it gets out of date stuff, but we have to operate under the open meeting law, just like everything I do is open meeting law, except the support groups that I have a technical support group and a citizen support group, and they don't make any decisions, so their meetings don't have to be public, thank goodness. Here's the Idaho statutes that created the Basin Commission Idaho. Here's the MOA where the other 3 governments join, and then here's all of our organizational practices and procedures. My agency is unique. If you look at an organization chart for Andy's outfit, DEQ, you got just burning the whole thing. They got a box over here, not hooked to anybody, and that's where Terry is, and my assistant. So we're not officially hooked to DEQ in any way. People think we are, but I get my budget, I have to add my funding needs to the director of DEQ's budget, and that's presented to the legislature every year. So that's how I get my funding. But because they decided that they wanted to offer state of Idaho employment to the Basin Commissioner, director, and my assistant, then we have to follow state of Idaho, you know, HR requirements and all that kind of stuff, and funding and fiscal, and we get training every 5 minutes, I think, on fiscal. But so this is the organizational practices and procedures, the current ones. And what I did do last year, because we were getting so few of the commissioners coming to meeting, they were sending their alternates. I changed the laws, basically the rules, and said alternates could serve in every position on the board except chair. I have to have a designated, yeah. So I've done a little work with Leslie down there and see if she'll run for the job. Because in March we have to, because Mike Fitzgerald was my chair. And then when he resigned, I lost my chair of the Basin Commission. So I got it, so I've been, you know, trying to get somebody to run. And I don't want somebody from Washington State, Idaho, or the feds, or even I want a local chair of that commission from one of you 3 counties. It's always been that. I've worked with, you know, clear back to Kennemossa and all those guys as far back as you can think, you know, and it's always done real well. Jack Buell was on there for a while, so I want a local person to be the chair of that commission, not a fed or a state official. So anyway, so this is the, well, here I am over there all by myself. I just put the org chart there. So anyway, that's and here's the CCC is a citizens group, and it's just made up of anybody that's interested in what's going on, and they're on a big mailing list, and everything we do, we send to them, and then there's a technical leadership group, and this is the work plans. And then I put a bunch of stuff in here about the fundamentals of the Superfund law, and I don't think, but what's also in here is the final rule on how to clean up operable unit 1, 2, and 3. they're called records of decision. Now, CERCLA, the Superfund law, has the same authority as NEPA, and I'm sure you've heard about NEPA, so you don't have to do NEPA on anything that goes on a Superfund site.
Oh, really?
Because CERCLA is the substitute for that. We wrote that right into the 1980 law when we got Reagan to sign it for us, but way back, yeah, because we didn't wanna have to do NEPA. Because these Superfund sites, if you've got a problem, you're supposed to be immediately go and correct it, not have to go through 3 years of NEPA to be able to clean up a mess someplace, and that's why we wrote it that way. So anyway, that's, and then of course what they did was, when they made the Superfund site bigger, well, they came up with remedies all the way from the headwaters up at Lookout Pass to Harrison. And they got all kinds of plans to clean all that up, okay? But they didn't have a plan to clean up Coeur d'Alene Lake, because frankly, there's not much you can do with it. It's infeasible technically and I did a cost estimate not too long ago to dredge Coeur d'Alene Lake and get rid of the muck. 75 million tons of that stuff, $3.7 billion to clean up Coeur d'Alene Lake. Now, they need to control the water quality, and you see some of that going on with nutrient loadings. And you guys are gonna, Andy will tell you about some of the money you're gonna get out of that up here in this community to deal with stormwater runoff and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's an infeasible, technically it's infeasible. Where are you gonna pump all that goop and then dry it out and then bury it someplace? You'd have a pile 3 times the size of the central impoundment area in Kellogg there. I mean, a mound is 3 times the size of that.
Oh, yeah.
See? So one of the other projects I forgot to tell you about is, we settled with Hecla and we settled with Sarkla. Sarkla was a bankruptcy, Hecla. We settled with Hecla, and they used some of that money for the paved road program and remedies on properties in the basin. But they also used about $50 million of that to redo the treatment plant in Kellogg. And what they did was, that got that big mound of muck there, and the groundwater's all contaminated underneath that waste repository. It was the old tailings ponds and stuff from the mining operation. What they did was, they're treating the water coming out of the bunker mine, and they drilled a whole bunch of extraction wells all the way around that pile, and they put a cutoff wall in. So you're cutting off the groundwater that's being contaminated by that pile. You're pumping it to the treatment plant, and you're treating it. So they're treating the extracted groundwater and the bunker mine water and discharging it to the river. It's meeting all discharge standards. Frankly, it's my opinion that the bunker mine would never be able to reopen without that treatment plant. There's just no way that the government would ever let them reopen. So there's something for the community. Not only that, we're cleaning up your groundwater. We're knocking about 40% of the metals load out of the river by doing that. Okay, and so the other projects we're working on now are up 9 Mile. We got about 2 or 3 more years up there, and we got a bunch of work up there. And then Canyon Creek, we got so many sites in Canyon Creek to clean probably 10 years. And there's about 40% of the loading in those 2 drainages too. But 9 Mile will be pretty well done by 2025. And I'm just making a wild ass guess about Canyon Creek, maybe 10 years, so I don't know. I mean, anyway, to finish cleaning that up. And then the upper basin will be pretty well taken care of, but we got a heck of a mess down. We got 18,000 acres of wetlands in the lower basin. And I don't know what we're gonna do with 18,000 acres, down there. I mean, there's no way we'll never get it all completely taken care of. But anyway, that's the process. Here's the briefing book, and if you're gonna be the person, I'll give it to you.
Some cheerful reading there.
But anyway, I don't expect you to read all that. But anything about the background for all of this is there. Now, we're spending about 25 to $30 million out of the ASARCO settlement. Years ago, even in the HW, I was thrown in Papa Bush too. But we decided, instead of making the taxpayers pay for all of this mess, it's across the whole United States, thousands, 3,500 abandoned mines. We need to go back and see if any of these companies are still financially viable and try to get them to pay for some of the mess as well. The taxpayers are taking it, So we did, and I worked with the Justice Department, and we started going after these companies. And what had happened was, these mine companies had made a great big mess, and then they left. Someone went to Australia, someone went to South America, or wherever they went. But these big companies came on behind them and they bought the property. Exxon, some of the big mining companies, Union Carbide, you know, Arco and Anaconda bought up all these properties. Well, when they bought the property, they bought the financial liability for the cleanup under CERCLA. So then we started going after them, and we had a whole program. And we cleaned up, you know, I used to have a goal every year to collect at least $200 million from the responsible parties every year, just as a kind of a personal goal. And that's what we did here. You know, I worked with Art Brown, the president of Hecla, on how to settle here. He had a big site down right on the Salmon River, right on the Yankee Fork. That was a horrible polluter. And he said, "Hey, Terry, can I clean that up myself instead of you suing me over it?" I said, "Sure, if you'll clean it up." And they did. So anyway, we settled with Hecla for about $268 million. And we settled with, and the Sarco, they went bankrupt, and they got sites all over, they got sites over in Tacoma and all over. And they got into the asbestos thing, you know, like the big asbestos cleanup in Libby, where, you know, they got attributed 250 or 60 deaths to that, getting, you know, cancer from asbestos. So anyway, so we settled with those two companies. The money from Hecla went into an account, Superfund account, which made about 0.5% interest. And we spend all of that out now, that's all gone, and we spend it on infrastructure and property cleanups and the paved road program. But the Sarco bankruptcy money was $480 million, and their administrator came to my office and says, "What do you think about investing in the stock market?" Yeah. Now, I managed those accounts for the Clinton administration. We didn't have a private party, but I managed those accounts. And I invested in treasury bills, treasury notes, and municipal bonds, but they were paying 13–14% interest then. Now, when we settled these guys, they're paying 2 or 3. So we did. So they spread the money out from the Sarco bankruptcy in the stock market, bonds, and all that kind of stuff. And they've got BlackRock Investments. I don't know if you heard about that. They're investing the money for the trust. So what you have is you have the EPA in charge of the cleanup. You have the Coeur d'Alene Trust was formed to implement the cleanup as a friendly polluter. And then you have this account that they're managing. $480 million. We've done about $150 million out of that account since 2012 when we settled. And it's still got about $100 million more in it than they had at the start. So you're looking at the fact that by investing it in the stock market, we probably made $200 million or $250. Now, one quarter it went down $56 million. It started with last year. Remember when the market went through? So you got it. It's kind of spooky, but without it being invested like that, we'd have pretty well eaten that one all up too. The federal government accounts can only make about 0.5% interest, and it's just a poor place to put money. So we're using the so we have this Sarco bankruptcy money, and that's what's paying for the work in 9 Mile, Candy Creek, and in the Lower Basin, and some other work around here. And Andy's on top. He's the manager for the state of Idaho up here. You want to add to any of the projects you guys are going to be doing this year?
The stuff that is coming out of this Sarco account is what we call the Coeur d'Alene Trust. So they're between 23, 24, and 25. They've got an estimated budget right now of $62.2 million just in the Upper Basin in Shoshone County. That's the work that will be done East Fork 9 Mile, Day Rock Complex, Tamarack up East Fork 9 Mile. Then we'll actually start the Hecla Star Complex this year up Candy Creek. And that one's going to be a 3-year project. The price tag on that right now is around $27 million for that cleanup. So those are the big ones the trust has. The other one we do have that's in Shoshone County is the Douglas Mine and Mill Site in Pine Creek. Will probably be done. We've got the design completely ready for it. We've just kind of pushed it off because it's not a high priority site. And with the cost of construction right now, we're kind of waiting for some of that to come back down. And then additionally, in the box, we pay for everything out of our settlement accounts. It's separate from Coeur d'Alene Trust money. So we've got an increase in fiscal year 22 of $5.2 million for additional construction work in the box alone. Big portion of that is property that's in the city of Kellogg that they've designated as Mountain View Park. It's the property east of the Zanetti Pit, the drive-in there. There's about 16 acres that we found actually was not remediated. So we have to go back and we're not gonna do an excavation or removal on that. We're actually gonna just come in and cap it. Put some access controls in there, then also do some restoration work along the river through there too. Then we have a project, DEQ owns the property north of Shoshone County Airport. And we've got that parking lot that's out there, and a lot of people basically made a trail system. What we're starting to see is the trail as they've made out there, this volunteer trail, is starting to wear through the barrier out there. So we've actually got a design that we did, EPA is funding us to go out and we're gonna put a 4-foot wide gravel trail back gravel trail out there that'll have a 1 mile, 1.5 mile, and a 2 mile loop. They'll come back to that. And then we're gonna do some more improvements to the parking lot there too. And working with Idaho Parks and Rec, they've actually approached DEQ on leasing that property. So we're in preliminary negotiations with them, and their idea is they actually wanna bring a trail from the Pinehurst Trailhead through Fish and Game's property over to our property, and then they would have a bike-in campground on that property out there by the river. And then eventually they're trying to procure funding to do a year-round RV park out there on the property too.
North of the airport. Are you also aware of our 10-year airport expansion plan? And how does that over?
We have designed our trail system and stuff so that we're outside of what your guys' expansion footprint is. So previous commissioners have looked at that design, so I can send you the trail designs, we do have that done. And once we get something from Parks and Rec, I'll send that on to you guys too. And they may approach you if they go through with it. Once they get the RV park in, where your guys' current gate is, it would actually work much better for access into RV park if that gate was moved to the west. So they may approach you about paying for moving your gate if it is possible. But first they've got to get their estimated price tag right now for the RV park to go in is about 2.2 million. So, yeah.
Might be a while.
And then we also have money this year for in the box where we're going to be doing areas that we have seen that weren't remediated or where we have barriers in place that are falling apart. So a big one of those is along sidewalks, especially in the south portion of Kellogg and uptown. They're all bedded on slag, and we've been able to document, you can see the slag starting to come out through those broken sidewalks. So we did an inventory of all the sidewalks and basically rated them good, fair, poor. Just looking out right now, it's gonna take about 1.8 million, which we do have in budget, that we could replace all the poor rated sidewalks in Kellogg. And we also have some right-of-ways. There's the one right-of-way for the eastbound on-ramp in Smelterville, where the trucks pull off there, and you can see when they pull back on, the tracking that contaminated soil, because that's never been remediated. We'll actually go through and redo that this year. Get a solid base, so even if they do pull off, we don't get those big potholes in the future. And the other thing we have, as Terry mentioned, is we took over operations of the central treatment plant in 2021 from EPA. So we have that now. We've actually been able to reduce 50% of the water we treat is the groundwater. The other 50% is mine water. We've been able to reduce the mine's cost by about $60,000 since we took over operations of the plant. We're working right now with them on doing a long-term lease. Because when they did their settlement agreement with EPA, they actually only have to May of 2023 to find a different option or lease our plant. So we're trying to work out that long-term lease with them right now, which is the best option because they looked at doing their own mine water treatment. They did a pilot project. They can treat their mine water if they built their own plant. It would actually cost them more to build their plant, hire the operators, than it would be staying with us. So. You guys have any other questions about the work we're doing?
How about your, with the paved road program, of course, we scraped up. That's how we got the pavement done, is because Jerry Cobb and I from old Panhandle Health, he worked there for years. We went around, took pictures of all your breaking up streets here years ago, and you could see the juice from the contaminated stuff coming up through the broken pavement. We spent all this money cleaning up people's properties, their yards, and then they were tracking it home off the streets in town. So that's how I got EPA to pay the streets. Yeah, because everything underneath was, the whole freeway across Mission Flats was picked up by scrapers from the mine companies, and that whole fill is all mine waste across the whole Mission Flats out there. So, I mean, it's the same thing, so. But under the paved road program, a lot of that material wasn't very high in contamination, so we put repositories for that material of Government Gulch and compacted it so that you guys can have development up there and put some development on those areas. Because you guys got a grant some years ago to put the water and sewer lines down the road in Government Gulch, but there was a big hole there and you'd have to pump everything up to that if you had a facility. So we filled all those in, so now you got a nice flat spot. So we've tried to build you flat areas around the community also to build stuff on. Because, and we did that all around the transfer station. We filled that all in there with one of these LURs, these little, repository things. So I'm working with the community, trying to develop as much flat ground as we can for you, where you can do development in the community as well. So there's been, it's really been a good relationship, between you know, the county, and the cities, and like Matt Kohler told me one time, he says, man, if we can just get Wallace to quit fighting with Kellogg over something, we will have done something. So, anyway, you know, cause that's, you know, there was like this, you know, but anyway, so we did, and we got a lot of good stuff done.
So is there any more of that pavement money available?
No,
Well,
no.
it's,
Try it.
it's, the money we have this year for that's box only. The other funds, source of funds we have right now is governor's given us $22 million for nutrient reduction in the Coeur d'Alene Basin. And so we formed what's called the Coeur d'Alene Lake Advisory Group. And they've been soliciting projects from different groups, even like water district, sewer district, East Side Highway District applied. Pretty much the only group we really have in Shoshone County did was the city of Kellogg. And they've so far, in the solicitation periods we've done, gotten about $3.5 million. So that's a significant chunk out of that 22. We still have 16 million left. Because of the National Academy of Sciences review they did in the lake here a couple of years ago, one of the #1 recommendation that we can do to improve lake water quality is to go to what they call tertiary treatment for all the wastewater plants that drain into the basin. The biggest loader that is not tertiary treatment right now is actually South Fork Sewer District. So they are actually going to be soliciting a project for us to fund them going to tertiary treatment, which would be about 18 million. There's a pretty good chance they'll get a good portion of that 16 million we have left going to them. So
Then your ratepayers won't have to pay for the $16 million improvement. I've been working with those guys for years in JUB, their engineering outfit, so too. So there's good stuff, see, and like I say, I wanted to brief you on I'm gonna retire by November probably. I mean, I'm 77 years old for crying out, I'm still working, but I'm soliciting your support like I've got through all those years, because you guys need to stay involved in this, especially if there's a possibility of getting a lot of work done, being paid for by somebody else other than you local folks. So, and we've really made a difference with stuff. I mean, when we paved 593 streets and roads in the community, that's $54 million worth of work. So.
And we can think of some more.
Yeah.
Well, I know, there were alleys, Mac was after me for money for this and that and the other thing, you know, all the time, so, but anyway, so that's why we wanted to be here, and we're a part of your community, and Andy's shop there is right next to City Hall, and I've got 2 offices in there. My assistants, I have an assistant and myself, and that's all. And I cover everything from the Columbia River to Lookout Pass. My territory is the whole thing, so.
And where's your office?
next to Kellogg City Hall.
Yeah, and I'm in the same area as he is. So the Basin Commission and the DEQ's office is in the flat part of that building. And then I have an office in my home when I'm down in the lower basin, because I cover Washington State and the lower basin. And I just run out of, I just put an office in my house. But I live clear out north of Coeur d'Alene, clear out, west of Silverwood, the theme park.
Oh, okay.
So I have to commute from there up here. It's worse commute than I had in Washington DC when I worked there.
So that's a ways up by Bunko?
Yeah, right. We have Buhner, corner of Buhner and Clagstone,
Oh, okay.
and I'm the homeowners association president for that whole area there, and I manage their drinking water system too.
Oh,
So
there you go.
I'm a licensed engineer in Idaho, Wyoming, Montana. So anyway, so that's the whole picture, unless you got some questions or anything, but, if you're so inclined, we need to get that letter to the governor.
We'll get
We can
that.
get
Yeah.
that
Oh,
Alex, right away.
March the 15th is a meeting. Now, because I represent 7 governments, I have to move the Basin Commission meeting around, and every 7th meeting has to be in Washington State. So that's where the one on March 15th is. And you know where Center Place is in Spokane Valley? You know where the Spokane Valley Mall is? Okay, if you get off on that exit, Center Place is kind of over that way. And I will send you a complete package for the meeting. I guess I'll just send it to Shoshone County, and then you can give it to whoever's gonna be.
Yeah,
there.
Andy has my email. We've emailed a couple times, so you
Yeah,
can.
Andy's got your email. Okay, I need to get that from you and Andy.
And I
yeah.
can make sure that it gets to.
Okay, and then in the packet will be, the minutes from the last meeting in November for approval. They have to be approved. There'll be the report for 2022, the draft, it has to be. And then there'll be a discussion, we'll have an election first thing I gotta do is elect a new chair for the Basin Commission, and I'm trying to get Leslie to run for the position, then I gotta find someone to nominate her. So we'll do that, and I think Jess Byrne from Idaho will do that, and she's willing to, and I worked with Leslie, she lives out by me out on the Rafton Prairie out there, and we worked on a bunch of local issues with 5-acre rule and all that kind of stuff, and I've done a lot of stuff for the Kootenai County Commissioners, so, anyway, so she, so that's what we'll probably do, and then we'll elect a new chair, and then Andy's gonna give a talk on how they're gonna try to fill my job. I don't know what he's gonna say, but anyway. And then, then we'll have an update on the lake by the tribe and DEQ, and then we're trying to locate a waste repository or a waste consolidation area in the lower basin. And these things, nobody wants them in their backyard, but we gotta dispose. We've got the one at Page, that big thing there, okay, so that's the box. There's one at East Mission Flats out by, the off-ramp for the Cotello Mission for the lower basin. There's one in Big Creek up here, and the Big Creek Annex, which is across the creek. They got hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of the contaminated material in them. And then we just built a great big one up opposite Woodland Park. And in the past, the mine companies cleaned up Canyon Creek. If you go up there and you see the power poles and they're up on an island, well, they scraped all the bad stuff out, but they took it down to the mouth of Canyon Creek and put it on a site that leaked on springs. So we had to pick 600,000 cubic yards of that material up the last couple of years and haul it up and put it in a dry spot. So that's the start of that great big huge waste repository there in Canyon Creek. And everything in Canyon Creek will go into that. What I tried to do, working with Panhandle Health and you local folks, I didn't want to haul waste through your communities. Because if we had to, say for instance, haul all the waste out of 9 Mile Canyon to a repository down here, guess what it'd do? It'd come right through Wallace. Truck after truck after truck after truck of waste material. So we built a big repository clear up at the head of East Fork, 9 Mile. So we're taking it all out of the way, it doesn't come through the community. So not only that, but we built areas up there, pits, where we could make clean material to cap with, because what we'd be doing is hauling all the clean stuff from Zanetti's pit out here all the way through town every day, truck after truck after truck after truck. So that's what we've tried to do, keep those trucks out of your communities, because plus they tear up the new road we just paid for you. Yeah. So anyway, so it's all part of it, trying to make it the best thing we can for the community. So I think that's, you got anything else, Andy?
Probably the only thing they need to be aware of is the FEMA remapping that we're working on.
Oh, yeah, flood mapping. Oh.
Primary map revision with FEMA to redesignate the floodplain. We've done a hydraulic analysis from Elizabeth Park down to Pine Creek and showing that their 100-year flood flows are about 46% higher than what they actually are in a 100-year flood. So by remapping that, it moves a significant portion of Kellogg and Smeltville out of the floodplain and floodway through there too.
And the thing about that is I've been funding a lot of that work through with Basin Commission funding, and I've got Alta Engineering doing the work for me. And Mike Fitzgerald's been working on that committee. In fact, I'm gonna meet with Mike and the consultant this afternoon on that issue. And by having the Corps, Kellogg asked the Corps to do this, by having that analysis, which is way less. See, FEMA used old flow data. And so you got this, and if you look at the flood maps, all areas flooded. Pinehurst is all flooded, Kellogg all flooded. You guys are all paying flood insurance on that. Well, this new analysis, there's only 1,400 feet of the levee in Kellogg that has to be upgraded. And it's right in front of the junior high. And in front of the lower base for the ski area. So the ski areas help fund some of this study too. But FEMA is fun to deal with. But anyway, Mike and I and my consultant are meeting after lunch, and I've got money in this year's budget, and I have to get it spent before May, because the fiscal year for Idaho was July 1st. And we want to get a preliminary design on that 1,400 foot upgrade. All the levees now, since the big hurricane came ashore in New Orleans and blew everything to pieces, they all have to be designed by a licensed professional engineer, and you gotta have a seal on them. So none of you guys' levees up here have ever been engineered. I mean, they just took a bulldozer, piled up big stuff, and it still keeps it from flooding, but they won't accept it. When FEMA does an analysis, they take the levee away and they let it flood like there's no levee there at all in our analysis. Now, we've also got a hydraulic analysis for Pine Creek. Pinehurst got a grant from the Corps, and it's the same thing, about only 53% of what FEMA's flood stuff is for Pine Creek. Now, they're a little bit, Pinehurst does have levees, and it's gonna take some real work in Pinehurst to upgrade those levees and have an engineer put a stamp on them. But again, it's started, but it is a frustrating process to deal with FEMA. So, but we could reduce you guys' flood insurance rates by a tremendous, that's why the ski areas, they're paying 40-some thousand a year for flood insurance.
For the water park.
Yeah. What's that?
For the water.
$40,000 insurance just for the water park.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's, I don't know how much they're paying for the whole thing, but that's why they're, well, we'll help you, you know, see, because they're paying that horrible premium. So it would really help your people in the community if we could reduce that flood insurance. Because with that flow, there's no way that the river will leave its banks except in that 1,400-foot piece.
So when would this project be done as far
This
as?
primary map revision process is about 18 months. I think we're 8 to 9 months in. Now, hopefully what it'll do too is, we're gonna end up with a hydraulic flow from Elizabeth Park to Pine Creek that's less than what the upgrading at stream is. So hopefully it'll bump the whole community up on FEMA's list to come in and do a whole basin-wide analysis
Yeah.
to make those
We'll
flows.
clear up the
consistent.
Shoshone Park and do the whole thing. Because we got like you said, we got a piece in the middle now where the flow after it goes by all these creeks down here is less than FEMA's flow up above, yeah, so, and they're having some their people are having some problems with that effort. And what I decided to do was I'm gonna go ahead and get a preliminary design for that levee even before FEMA, you know, comes up with the new maps, because I don't think FEMA's gonna challenge the Corps of Engineers upon the flows, so I don't wanna wait, see? As soon as those new maps come in, I want us to be able to hit the ground and try to get some grants or something to replace that 1,400 feet levee for you guys, so. That's what my plan is. Of course, I won't be here anymore after that, so, but anyway. Maybe I'll be a consultant.
Yeah, you will, yeah.
All
Time for
right,
another
thanks so
career.
much,
Yeah,
guys,
thank
and I appreciate your support, because I'm proud of what we've done here, guys, I really am. And I didn't know anything about this community. I grew up in Coeur d'Alene. The only time we came up here was to try to beat Kellogg in football, and sometimes it didn't work too good. So, you know, that's all I knew about the other than driving through here, you know. Well, my mother was an entertainer, and she used to play jazz piano at the Mint Lounge up here for about 6 years, you know, 7 nights a week. When this place was booming, man, you had live music, every kind of live music you could think of up here, so. Yeah, she had a band there at the Mint for, tenor sax band and drummer and bass and piano, yeah. I think it was 7 nights a week, I think.
I think we have live jukebox now.
Yeah, live jukebox. Okay, so that's it.
Look forward to working with you for a while.
And then, you know,
We'll get your letter out right away.
yeah, I guess what I would do for you before the Basin Commission meeting, you might wanna read the statute, and you might wanna read the policies and procedures of the Basin Commission, so you know, when we get into a meeting, all the wherewithals, and you got all these governments, GN and HON for, you know,
Oh, yeah.
for position, you know, so.
Okay.
It's interesting, yeah.
I'll be the guy.
Oh, by
to
the
say,
way,
hey,
we do
Rose.
have all the remedies done in Washington State. They didn't wanna wait. You know where this bridge across the Spokane River is? All of that bank along the, the Centennial Trail there? That whole area was all contaminated, clear into Spokane. And Washington didn't wanna wait for us to get everything done up here, so I worked with them. We went in and cleaned all that up. We're monitoring that this year now to see how much stuff's come over Post Falls Dam and buggered it up again, but it looks like it's held up pretty good. But they just didn't, there's so many people in Spokane over there going down along the river that were playing in that stuff. That's our big problem in the lower basin, and he didn't say anything. We've got places down there, guys, along the banks of the river where it's 20,000 parts per million lead, and the actual level is 1,000. So you got little kids down there playing in the muck, and they right in the red muck, and they're getting contaminated, so. We've got a lot of that, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's my card if you guys need it.
Thank you very much.
We do just deal with the Superfund stuff out of Kellogg, but if you guys do have air quality or solid waste complaints that you're gonna get from constituents, you can always contact me and I can get our Coeur d'Alene staff on it.
Okay.
Usually make them move faster.
Okay,
So,
Sounds good.
look forward to working with you.
All right, well, I'll let, Jess from the state of Idaho was really wanted to be sure you guys were gonna get, you know, to the governor. He just sent me, he says, hey, I got a letter from Leslie here, are you okay with that? And I said, you bet, you know, cause they just changed, you know, who their commissioner is, so they'll be looking for a letter from you guys for that too.
Well, it's gonna look a lot like Kootenai's.
Yeah, well, plagiarism is the name of the game in my office.
It works.
Yeah, so.
All right, I was gonna, before you leave, I'm just gonna open it up if we have any public
Oh,
questions
yeah.
or comments. Or for county folks over there, okay?
Thanks. Good
All
job.
right.
Oh, one thing,
Yes.
I did an inventory of every creek crossing on Shoshone County roads some years ago. I don't know if you've, and I had a consultant do it. And the reason I did it is because the natural resource trustees wanna put fish passage structures wherever there's a culvert in the road. And I thought, if you had an old rusted out pipe, I
Yeah.
might be able to get you the funding to put a bottomless structure in a creek someplace. So
Sure.
you should have that inventory. If you don't have it, I'll dig, let me know. But I had a consultant inventory every creek crossing on county roads
I will
in the
look through,
county.
because I have not come
Yeah.
across through everything that I've looked
Okay,
through,
yeah.
but yeah, I'll,
But especially if you've got an old structure that's rusting out someplace, we might be able to get you the money to replace it with some kind of a fish passage structure.
fantastic,
Yeah,
because
then
I
you
know
wouldn't
we
have to-
worked
county wouldn't have
with,
to pay for it.
we
yeah.
worked with Restoration Partnership, on the Trapper Creek project up there.
Oh, did you already?
Mhm,
Okay.
Yep, and so that went seamlessly, so.
See, now that probably the same kind of money I'm talking about, where that would come from,
Yeah.
because they're looking at the, you know, the habitat for the animals.
Sure,
and stuff, yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, all right.
I think they're doing their next solicitation here in March,
Okay,
Restoration Partnership.
great,
Yeah, just let me know, and if you can't, if I can't find my copy, I'll get a hold of my consultant, and we'll get a copy of that for you.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank
Good
you.
enough.
Thank you, guys. Nice to meet you. Meeting adjourned.